Hello again, Dr. Clif, and today we have some questions from our viewers. First one had to do with starting a exercise program, particularly running. Any type of exercise program, you first should be cleared by your physician. Yes, now I'm covered legally. No, seriously, the most important thing about an exercise program is pick an exercise you like, because consistency is the key. If you do something that you're all excited about and you do it for a week or two every day and then you stop doing it, it's not going to really lead to any long-term benefits, which is what we're looking for. We're looking to develop a habit of exercise that you enjoy. So if you like running, then running is okay. If you hate running, then don't say, well, I need to go run because it's good for me. That's a bad plan. Pick something else like roller skating or kayaking or weightlifting. Even if you're trying to get in shape cardiovascular wise, you can pick a style of weightlifting that still gets you out of breath and sweaty, and you can get a cardiovascular workout even from something that people traditionally don't think of as a cardiovascular activity. Most people think like, oh, I need to work on my heart, or I want to lose weight, or this, so I need to go run, or I need to go bike. But there's a lot of different activities you can do. Setting up a program like that, it really is a hard question to answer directly, because it depends on your goals, it depends on your background, and it also just depends on how much free time you have. But the easiest way to get started is just to go for a walk. If you go for a walk, maybe 10 to 20 minutes, or if you go for a walk for 10 minutes 2 or 3 times a day, it's a very small thing, but it gets you in the habit, and it also starts to improve your overall cardiovascular shape if you've just been sitting in a chair most of the day at work like a growing number of us do. So just getting up and moving, there's this craze with the Fitbits, which has kind of died down a little bit now, I think, from what I've seen with my patients, but there's still a lot of people that have Fitbits, and one of the positive things about them is they buzz at you every hour or so to tell you like, hey, you haven't taken your 250 steps this hour yet. I don't necessarily think that you have to worry about taking 250 steps every hour, but you don't want to be sitting for hours at a time, ideally anyways. That's a whole different issue, but at least it gets you up and gets you moving. As far as running directly, once you have some kind of just exercise habit already, I think probably anywhere from a 2-day-a-week to 5-day-a-week program is appropriate, depending on what your goals are and what other things you're doing. You probably need to run at least 2 days a week to see any type of progress, because if you're not running a few times a week, if you just run like, oh, I go run 6 miles every Sunday, it's not consistent enough to see a big change in your body if you're trying to improve your running overall. So probably 2 or 3 days a week, I would say, is the best plan.
Do you have thoughts on running inside versus outside? What surfaces? What do you think about treadmills?
Treadmills can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on the person. I'm not a huge fan of the treadmill in general, but I live in South Florida, so it's beautiful all the time. Well, except when it rains for a month straight, like it did in May. But in general, I like to run outside because I think it's just a much more natural thing. But if you're somewhere in the frozen tundra, or if you have to run at night because of your work schedule or something, and it's not the safest area you're in or something, then running inside on a treadmill is fine. For some people that have a lot of degenerative problems with their knees or their ankles, a treadmill can be a little softer depending on the style of the treadmill and depending on how new or old it is. If you have your own treadmill and it doesn't get much use except you, and it has a fair amount of padding that's underneath that tread that's on it, it's much less wear and tear than going out and running on the sidewalk. If you go to a commercial gym that doesn't maintain their stuff very well, the treadmill may just be a thin piece of rubber right on steel because the padding in between is worn out with thousands and thousands of hours of use, and it may actually be almost harder on your knees and ankles than it is to run outside. So there's a little bit of variation there depending. The other thing is that some people with balance problems, if you have some vertigo or if you just have some, a little bit of neuropathy in your feet maybe, that it's safer to be walking or running on a stable surface as opposed to something moving underneath you. So I'm not a big fan if you have a little bit of diabetic neuropathy or something and you're not exactly sure where your feet are, to be doing a lot of stuff on the treadmill. If you want to work out inside, you're probably safer with the elliptical or a bicycle or something than you are with the treadmill, because if you lose your balance just a little, the treadmill doesn't stop for you to get rebalanced. It keeps moving until you go far enough that that safety cord thing pulls out if you have it. And if you don't have that, it just keeps going even if you fall off the back of it. So that's not a very safe plan. Running outside, there's a lot to take into account. Weather conditions. If you're in a place where it's 90 degrees with 90% humidity all the time like here, you want to make sure that you stay hydrated and you're aware of just your conditioning versus being outside. If you spend most of your day inside and you're in pretty good shape, but you're not used to it, a heat index of 110, then you may have to scale back your running a little bit just because of that, at least at first, until your body adjusts. Surfaces, running on something soft like a grass field or a mulch track, if you have these fitness trails like we have around here, is easier on your joints than running on the sidewalk. At the same time, it can be harder on your tendons and muscles because it's just not a level surface. It's what we call a compliant surface. It's like running on a sponge or something. It changes position. The same thing with running on the beach. If you run in the sand, it's a whole lot harder physically for your heart and lungs and muscles, but it's actually a little bit easier on your joints. Unless you're down by the water. That's a whole different animal. That's, if you have a history of back or hip problems, running close to the water where the shore is kind of slanted is not good for you. I see patients often that all they've done is gone for a couple-mile walk on the beach, and it's like they're walking with one shoe on and one shoe off because of the angle, and then they end up with back pain because of it.